Mabuhay! I'm Joy Cancio. Samahan niyo kami tuklasin ang mga bagong magpapayanig sa TNG stage. Let's celebrate the wonderful world of dancing dito lang sa Bigger and Better Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 here on Net 25.
Passengers here are in for a ride. Taxi drivers here need nerves of steel, while passengers here can get an eyeful along the way. Rev taxis accommodate passengers all over the world. The Driver, our series. Rev.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to tonight's program. And now our headlines.
Explanation to the American people.
President Trump and challenger Joe Biden's final debate was a starkly more civil affair than their messy first showdown.
China has a secret bank account with.
Ahead of the World Tsunami Day on November 5, the Department of Science and Technology Undersecretary Renato Solidum Jr. is urging local government units to plan and prepare for it.
I'm Brian Ravitch, acting.
And global financial titan Goldman Sachs agrees to pay $2.9 billion in penalties to settle criminal charges in the 1MDB Malaysian bribery scandal, the largest U.S. fine ever in a corruption case, according to the Justice Department.
And a UN expert says the coronavirus could push 150 to 175 million more people into extreme poverty.
President Trump and challenger Joe Biden's final debate on Thursday, U.S. time, was a starkly more civil affair than their messy first showdown, but that did not prevent the pair from clashing on everything from immigration to racism and climate change. Here's a look at some of the key moments of the debate.
If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine.
220,000 Americans dead. You hear nothing else I say tonight. Hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America.
But you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And, Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and, in fact, is talking about me taking...
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through merit.
But how will you
Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform, Obama and Joe didn't do it.
A question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire, every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board.
Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away...
Climate change, climate warming, global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years.
Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success, but I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right.
What is on the ballot here is the character of this country. Decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
U.S. President Donald Trump and his Democratic challenger Joe Biden defend and challenge environmental policies during the final presidential debate. While Biden argues for more renewable energy, Trump insists that it's expensive and has a lot of problems.
The fastest growing industry in America is the solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50 bucks an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
Please respond, and then I have
We
to
are
follow.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds, it's very intermittent, it's got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China.
We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs.
If you look at what he wants to do, you know, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC +3.
Nigeria's president has urged an end to unrest sweeping the country, but avoided mentioning the police shooting of unarmed demonstrators that sparked international condemnation and unleashed chaos in Africa's biggest city. Lagos has seen shootings, looted shops, and a prison set ablaze since security forces this week opened fire on peaceful protesters calling for better governance and an end to police brutality in the city of 20 million. Take a look.
On Monday, 12th October, I acknowledged the genuine concerns and agitations of members of the public regarding the excessive use of force by some members of SARS. I would like to appeal to protesters to note and take advantage of the various well-thought-out initiatives of this administration designed to make their lives better and more meaningful, and resist the temptation of being used by some subversive elements to cause chaos with the aim of truncating our nascent democracy.
Amnesty International said Nigerian soldiers and police gunned down 12 demonstrators, while 56 have died overall across the country since a wave of protests began 2 weeks ago. But President Muhammadu Buhari blamed agitators who he said had hijacked and misdirected the protest movement. International condemnation has snowballed in recent days, where the U.S., African Union, European Union, and Britain all criticizing authorities for using excessive force. Nigeria's army has denied that its soldiers opened fire on demonstrators on Tuesday. But UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, said there were signs the attack was premeditated, planned, and coordinated. Protests erupted in Nigeria 2 weeks ago over police brutality by the Loth Special Anti-Robbery Squad. President Buhari scrapped the unit and pledged reforms, but the demands from the young protesters broadened to calls for more sweeping change.
In other news, Vietnamese and international weather agencies say Storm Sodell is heading towards central Vietnam and flood-hit provinces from Ha Tinh to Quang Tri. At 7 a.m. on Friday, it lay centered around 320 kilometers east of Vietnam's Paracel Islands in the East Sea, known internationally as the South China Sea, with winds of up to 150 kilometers per hour, according to the National Center for Hydrometeorological Forecasting. In the next 24 hours, it is forecast to move west at a speed of 15 kilometers per hour and lie north of the Paracel Islands at 7 a.m. Saturday and around 240 kilometers from the coast of Ha Tinh Quang Tri provinces by 4 a.m. on Sunday. By then, its winds will fall to a maximum of 90 kilometers per hour. Vietnam Express reports that for more than 2 weeks, the central region has suffered damage described by the government officials as the worst in 5 years. At least 117 people had been killed and 21 others were missing as of Thursday. Saudel is the 8th storm in the East Sea this year and follows Linfa and Nanka earlier this month.
And ahead of the World Tsunami Day on November 5, Department of Science and Technology Undersecretary Renato Solidum Jr. is urging local government units to plan and prepare for it. In a taped DOST report aired on Friday afternoon, Mr. Solidum said the Philippines is prone to tsunamis since it is an archipelago and because it has earthquake generators. Solidum also said that in the last 400 years, all the tsunamis that happened in the country were locally generated, wherein the public has no time to prepare as this kind of tsunami reaches the shore right away. The strongest, he said, happened on August 17, 1976 during the magnitude 8.1 Moro Gulf earthquake that killed around 8,000 people. The other type of tsunami, or the distant tsunami that originates from a distant source, would enable people to prepare at least 1 to 26 hours before it reaches the shore. Mr. Solidum emphasized LGUs and the public need to prepare. One must remember the 3 signs that a tsunami is approaching: shake, drop, and roar. And this means that shaking or a strong earthquake would happen, a sudden drop of water would be noticeable, and an unusual sound or noise would be heard. He urged the LGUs to download the Hazard Hunter app, as this would guide them about locations at risk for volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and other hazards.
The United Kingdom said it's set to create a special class of visa next January for Hong Kong holders of BNO passports and their close family members. This is the first step in a new pathway to earning the right of abode in the country and full British citizenship. The UK Foreign Office said there will be no cap on the number of British national overseas passport holders allowed to participate, and applications will be open on January 31st of next year. It said the UK government is changing the entitlements attached to BNO status in response to the breach of the Sino-British Joint Declaration by the Chinese government in restricting the rights and freedoms of Hong Kong people and eroding the high degree of autonomy of the SAR. In July, the British Home Secretary Priti Patel said China's imposition of sweeping, controversial national security law on Hong Kong had breached the Sino-British Joint Declaration, laying out the terms of the city's 1997 territorial handover, and could not be ignored. Beijing has criticized London for its recent BNO moves, accusing it of meddling in Chinese internal affairs and threatening to stop recognizing the passports in retaliation.
In other news, Libya's 2 rival factions signed a permanent ceasefire agreement on Friday after 5 days of talks at the United Nations, which hailed the move as a moment that will go down in history. Take a look.
Today is a good day for the Libyan people. At 11:15 a.m. this morning, here in the UN headquarters in Geneva, the 2 Libyan delegations to the 5+5 Joint Military Commission talks signed a complete, countrywide, and permanent ceasefire agreement with immediate effect.
Libya has been racked by conflict for nearly a decade since the overthrow and killing of dictator Muammar Gaddafi in a NATO-backed uprising. And since then, the North African country has been dominated by armed groups, riven by local conflicts and divided between the 2 bitterly opposed administrations. Both sides continue to accuse each other of supporting terrorist groups. Since Gaddafi's ouster in 2011, rival power centers and a myriad of militias have vied for control of the country. The capital, Tripoli, in the west is held by the internationally recognized government of National Accord, while a parliament based in the eastern city of Tobruk is backed by Haftar's forces. Haftar, supported by Russia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt, launched an offensive on Tripoli in April 2019, but was pushed back early this year as pro-GNA forces received crucial support from Turkey.
In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin says that almost 5,000 people have died in more than 3 weeks of fighting between Armenian forces and Azerbaijan's army over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Let's listen in.
Общее число погибших приближается уже к 5000. Обращаю внимание, что за 10 лет войны в Афганистане в Советском Союзе, в Советской армии погибло 13 тысяч. А здесь за такой короткий промежуток времени уже почти 5. А сколько раненых? Сколько людей страдает? Сколько детей?
The disputed region in Azerbaijan is controlled by Armenian separatists backed by Yerevan, who declared independence as the Soviet Union fell in a conflict that erupted again into full-scale fighting last month. Armenian Prime Minister and Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev have rebuffed calls for peace, and fighters on the ground have left 2 ceasefires in tatters after accusing the other side of violations. Armenian separatists and the Azerbaijani military claim to have inflicted devastating losses on the other side in terms of military hardware and military personnel. Yet the unconfirmed death toll from the most recent outbreak of fighting that erupted on September 27 is just under 1,000, including civilians, a figure that is believed to be much lower than the real human cost, since Azerbaijan has not disclosed its military fatalities.
To other news now, 2 women accused of stabbing 2 other women wearing Muslim headscarves near the Eiffel Tower in Paris and trying to rip off their veils have been charged with assault and racist slurs, according to legal sources. The case comes amid heightened racial tensions following the jihadist killing last week of a French teacher who had shown his pupils cartoons of the Islam prophet Muhammad. The women accused over the assault were drunk when they came across a group of Muslim women and children in the Champs de Mars Park at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. The Muslim family complained about the other women's dog, saying they felt threatened by it. In the ensuing row, one of the women with the dog pulled a knife and stabbed 2 of the veiled women aged 19 and 40. And here they are.
Je demande aux propriétaires des chiens de les tenir auprès d'elles le temps qu'on passe. Et là, les propriétaires deviennent tout de suite agressifs et nous disent qu'ils sont là depuis 16 heures et que personne ne les a dérangés et que nous, salles arabes, on était là pour les déranger. Et du coup, la dame s'approche de moi, se met à me toucher le voile. Et Kenza s'interpose entre nous deux.
Je m'interpose du coup entre la femme et ma sœur. Et donc je me suis pris un premier coup de couteau au niveau du crâne, ici. Un second au niveau de l'abdomen et un troisième au bras.
The 40-year-old woman sustained 6 stab wounds and is being treated in hospital for a perforated lung. The younger victim was stabbed 3 times and was also treated in hospital, but has since been discharged. Both victims claim their attackers called them, quote, dirty Arabs, and told them, quote, this is not your home.
UK improves new job support.
And the United Kingdom has improved its new job support scheme after businesses criticized that it didn't go enough. Erica Celestino joins us live from our EBC UK Bureau. Hello, Erica.
Hello, Alma, and yes, that is correct. The UK government on Thursday improved its new job support scheme after businesses hit by regional coronavirus lockdowns claimed it did not go far enough. Let's listen in.
Go ahead, Erica.
Okay, Alma, thank you. I hope the government stepped up support can be part of the country pulling together in the coming months. Finance Minister Sunak told Parliament, according to AFP. To benefit from the new scheme, staff have to work only 20% of their normal working hours as opposed to 1/3. Employer contributions for unworked hours have meanwhile been sharply reduced to just 5% from 1/3. These changes mean more employers can access the scheme and more jobs will be protected, Sunak said. Also, Alma, analysts expect a surge in unemployment following the end of the far superior furlough scheme that has been paying up to 80% of wages for millions of workers. Sunak has stated that such a scheme is not sustainable after the coronavirus fallout sent the UK's national debt soaring. Also, Alma, more than half of Britain's population is, meanwhile, under tighter curbs aimed at halting a nationwide surge in COVID-19. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government this month introduced a localized 3-tier alert system to try to contain the disease. Thursday's announcement is aimed at helping businesses in Tier 2 regions, which have thus far fared worse in terms of state support than those in Tier 3 or very high virus risk areas. Adding, in an effort to address criticism over the treatment of regions which had been in Tier 2 since August, including Greater Manchester, which moved to Tier 3 on Friday. Sunak added that business grants would be available retrospectively. Alma, here in the northern area of England, including the cities of Liverpool and Manchester, have been placed under more stringent restrictions, joining Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales with tighter curbs to help stem spiking infections. Some virus hotspots are seeing bans on household mixing and the closure of pubs, bars, and other venues. That has sparked an outcry from the embattled hospitality sector. Back to you, Alma.
Okay, I think Erica, CJ has a question for you, Erica.
Yes, CJ.
Yes. How does the new scheme compare with, how things were before?
Okay, so CJ, the original furlough scheme that will end on the 31st of October presents how the employee receives 80% of the wage, where 20% is paid by the actual employer and 60% paid by the government. While in the job support scheme for 3-tier businesses that were forced to close, the employee receives 67% of the wage, but this time it's totally paid by the government. Also, in the part-time job support scheme for all other businesses affected by restrictions, the employee must work at least 20% of his hours, as mentioned earlier. And this way, the employer will pay 5% of unworked hours, while the government pays 49%.
All right, thank you.
Erica, now, how will this scheme work outside England?
Well, Alma, so according to BBC, this scheme is UK-wide. Although the system of tiered restrictions in England, it's not actually UK-wide, because here in England we have a 3-tier system, while let's say in Scotland they are going to bring in a 5-tier system of virus alert levels from the 2nd of November. So the middle 3 will be broadly equivalent to the English 3 level, but the Scottish system will add an extra tier at the bottom and 1 at the top. Meanwhile, in Wales, actually Wales is about to enter a 2-week national lockdown from 6 p.m. British Standard Time on Friday, while Northern Ireland actually began a 4-week lockdown last Friday. Although, you know, everything is happening, extra central government funding has been promised to be given to all the devolved nations so that, you know, they can award grants at a local level.
All right. Thank you very much, Erica, for your report. Looking forward to more updates there in the United Kingdom. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Alma and CJ. Reporting live from London, United Kingdom, I am Erica Celestino. We live in interesting times.
And Eagle News will be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights Olivier de Schutter said the world's economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic must combat poverty and reduce inequality and not, according to him, worsen or aggravate our ecological footprint. Please watch this.
Recent assessments is that at least 150 million more people shall be driven into destitution as a result of the crisis, and perhaps as many as 176 million more people shall fall under the international poverty line, which is set at a ridiculously low level of $1.90 per day per person. On the other hand, we have an ecological crisis that the COVID-19 pandemic has not per magic made disappear, and that we also have to take into account in shaping the recovery from the economic crisis. So we need to combat poverty, we need to reduce inequalities, and we need at the same time to remain within planetary boundaries and not to worsen or aggravate our ecological footprint. The second recommendation is to identify in different areas, particularly energy, mobility, food, and housing, the measures that can have a triple impact or that can provide us with a triple dividend, a triple return. First, insofar as such measures can reduce the ecological impact, reduce particularly greenhouse gas emissions. Secondly, measures that can create employment, particularly for people with low levels of qualification. And thirdly, measures that can ensure that goods and services that are essential to lead a decent life are affordable for low-income families. I believe it's a very important moment which we are facing, because the choices we make today shall be decisive for the next 10, 15 years to come, given the $12 trillion that have been injected by governments in the economy in order to speed up the economic recovery.
Special rapporteurs are part of the special procedures of the UN Human Rights Council and work on a voluntary basis. They are not UN staff and do not receive a salary for their work. They are independent from any government or organization.
On the other hand,
and serve in their individual capacity.
Out of work and unable to feed his baby son, Kain Thazin, Mient's 23-year-old husband, took his own life. He was from a poor family in Myanmar, one of many suffering increased hardship under the coronavirus lockdown. Take a look.
The EU's Disease Control Agency warned on Friday that transmission levels of COVID-19 in 23 member countries and the United Kingdom were now of serious concern. All EU countries except Cyprus, Estonia, Finland and Greece fall into that category, according to European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control's latest assessment, up from only 7 countries a month ago. ECDC Director Andrea Aman, in a statement, said the continuing increases in COVID-19 infections pose a major threat to public health, with most countries having a highly concerning epidemiological situation. The agency also said new recorded cases had been steadily increasing since August and has shown a marked escalation in recent weeks. Suggested measures included physical distancing, limits on large gatherings, hand washing, and encouraging the use of face masks.
And Belgium's 45-year-old Foreign Minister Sophie Wilmes, who tested positive for COVID-19 last week, is admitted to intensive care in a Brussels hospital after her condition worsened overnight. The 45-year-old tested positive for COVID-19 last week and had been self-isolating, but her condition worsened. And on Wednesday night, she was admitted to a Brussels hospital. She is conscious and she can communicate, according to her spokeswoman, confirming that Wilmes was receiving intensive care. A source in her office said her condition was stable. Belgium, meanwhile, is now experiencing one of the worst second waves of the epidemic in the world. And with 10,539 deaths in a country of 11.5 million people, one of the deadliest outbreaks per capita. The number of confirmed infections has doubled in a month to 253,386, and there are 3,274 patients currently in hospital, despite a renewed partial lockdown that has seen pubs and restaurants close.
Two more senior Palestinian officials have tested positive for the coronavirus as veteran chief negotiator Saeb Erekat fights for his life in an Israeli hospital, one of them told the AFP. Palestine Liberation Organization Central Committee member Azam Al-Ahmad said he and Social Development Minister Ahmed Majdalani had both joined the growing list of Palestinian officials who have contracted the virus. Others include high-profile PLO official Hanan Ashrawi and a Hamas leader in Gaza, Saleh al-Aruri. Erekat, who is also Secretary General of the PLO, was admitted to the coronavirus intensive care unit of Jerusalem's Hadassah in Kerem Hospital on Sunday with severe respiratory problems, some of them pre-existing. On admission, his doctors described his condition as serious, but it deteriorated on Monday, and he was put on a ventilator in a medically induced coma. Doctors say his condition is critical. Streets in central Dublin are eerily quiet as Ireland becomes the first EU nation to enter a second wave or second virus lockdown. For 6 weeks, citizens have been told to stay at home with a strict 5-kilometer travel limit.
Just been out for a walk around the streets, and it is kind of eerie and poignant, and it's just that kind of cloud of sadness again that the city is abandoned.
And a lot of my friends are struggling with mental health issues now as well because of this second lockdown. We can't socialise, we can't meet up.
I think it's going to do a good job in reducing the number of cases that are happening at the moment, but again, it's going to be a bit of a wave going up and down for the moment.
And here are the scenes in central Manchester at what would have been rush hour after the region was moved to Tier 3, very high alert on Friday. Take a look. Now, swathes of northern England, including Manchester, have been placed under more stringent restrictions, joining Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales with tighter curbs to help stem spiking coronavirus infections. Pubs will have to close and people will be barred from mixing with members of other households. On Thursday, 21,242 new cases of coronavirus were reported in the UK, along with 189 deaths among people who had tested positive in the 28 days before they died. Prime Minister Boris Johnson also admitted that the test and trace system, which he previously insisted would be world-beating, needed improvement. And curfew is ordered in the northern Italian region of Lombardy from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. No one can move around in Milan and other cities without a justified reason. The measure is adopted to fight COVID-19, and Lombardy is the region with the most infected in Italy and with the highest number of patients admitted to intensive care.
In other news, help us to avoid the tsunami, insists the head of the medical intensive care unit at the new civil hospital in Strasbourg, France. Please watch this.
Aidez-nous à éviter le tsunami parce que clairement c'est une situation qu'on ne veut pas revivre. Le personnel, qu'il soit médical ou paramédical, n'est pas sorti indemne de la première vague, de la première crise. On aimerait éviter d'aller dans des situations dans lesquelles on s'est trouvé, qui étaient des situations, on va dire, inhumaines pour tout le monde.
While the admission of COVID-19 patients are accelerating, the ICU hospitals in the area, already very busy with the usual autumn activity, are seeing the second wave of the pandemic arrive with apprehension, but also with more experience. On Thursday, France reported a daily record of 41,622 new cases, and the number of patients in ICU is at its highest level since May. Thursday's figure of 165 fatalities in 24 hours is still well below the April peak, when the death toll soared to more than 900 a day. Prime Minister Jean Castex conceded that hospitals were likely to come under pressure.
Global financial titan Goldman Sachs agreed to pay $2.9 billion in penalties to settle criminal charges in the 1MDB Malaysian bribery scandal. It's the largest U.S. fine ever in a corruption case. The Justice Department announced. Acting U.S. Assistant Attorney General Brian Rabbitt said Goldman accepted responsibility in the case that involved $1.6 billion in bribes. Let's listen in.
I am Brian Rabbitt, acting. This morning, the department filed criminal charges in New York against the Goldman Sachs Group and its Malaysian subsidiary, charging each with conspiracy to violate the anti-bribery provisions of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. These charges stem from Goldman Sachs' central role in a massive global scheme to loot billions of dollars from the government-run Malaysian investment fund known as 1MDB, and the subsequent use of those funds by senior Goldman bankers and their co-conspirators to pay billions of dollars in bribes to senior government officials around the world. Goldman Sachs Malaysia pleaded guilty to those charges just a short while ago, and its parent entity, the Goldman Sachs Group, has entered into an agreement with the Department of Justice deferring prosecution on those charges for 3 years, provided certain conditions are met. In a reflection of the seriousness of the bank's conduct, today's resolution includes the largest monetary penalty ever paid to the United States in a corporate criminal foreign bribery resolution and requires the bank to pay a total of over $2.9 billion in criminal fines, penalties, and disgorgement. 1MDB was a multi-billion-dollar investment fund created by the Malaysian government to promote economic development. In 2012 and 2013, Goldman received approximately $600 million in fees, an unusually large amount, for its work helping 1MDB raise $6.5 billion by issuing and selling bonds on the international market. However, billions of dollars were later stolen from 1MDB, some of which was then used to bribe corrupt officials in Malaysia and Abu Dhabi, as well as others. These criminal proceeds were laundered through the United States and other financial institutions and used to make extravagant purchases around the world, including high-end real estate, yachts, art, and other luxury goods. As the bank admitted in court today, senior Goldman bankers played a central role in this scheme, conspiring with others to siphon off approximately $2.7 billion from 1MDB. They then used those funds to line their own pockets and to pay approximately $1.6 billion in bribes. In addition to the involvement of several senior Goldman executives, other personnel at the bank allowed this scheme to proceed by overlooking or ignoring a number of clear red flags. Now, today's resolution is significant. It includes criminal charges against the bank and a guilty plea by its Malaysian subsidiary. It also requires Goldman to disgorge the entirety of its $600 million profit, pay a $2.3 billion penalty, and admit wrongdoing. In short, it imposes serious consequences that reflect the central role that Goldman and its employees played in this serious scheme.
In other news, Britain held its first major post-Brexit trade deal Friday after signing an agreement with Japan that it said shows it can stand alone on the global stage as talks on a pact with the European Union remain bogged down. London said the pact, which was agreed after just a few months of talks over the summer, would boost business between the two by £15.2 billion and proved others could be signed elsewhere. Let's watch this.
This is the first new free trade deal to be agreed since the UK once again became an independent trading nation. It used to be said that an independent UK would not be able to strike major trade deals or they would take years to conclude. But today we prove the naysayers wrong with this groundbreaking British-shaped deal that was agreed in record time.
厳しい交渉を経て交渉開始からわずか4ヶ月半という 異例のスピードで署名が実現したことは、日英両国が今後とも自由貿易を力強く推進していくとの意思の表れでもあります。
The UK-Japan Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement covers sectors including food, textiles, and technology, and largely replicates the existing EU-Japan arrangement, which will no longer apply to Britain at the end of this year. It is due to take effect on January 1st next year, the end of a transition period in which London and Brussels are trying to thrash out the terms of their new relationship. British-Japanese trade was worth around £30 billion last year, while Britain's imports and exports to the European Union, its biggest trading partner, totaled $670 billion.
And the Eiffel Tower is experiencing a collapse in visitor numbers as foreign tourists stay away and tight coronavirus measures, including a curfew, take their toll. The Paris landmarks operator said on Friday ticket sales have fallen by 80% compared to 2019, according to the operator Sete, and revenue by 70%. Sete President Jean-Francois Martin told RTL Radio that they have 2,500 visitors per day for a monument that can accommodate up to 25,000. Since the end of the summer, visitors are down to between 10 and 20% of the usual attendance. Social distancing rules allow lifts going up the tower to carry only half the usual number of people. The Eiffel Tower has also canceled its night opening hours as curfew rules in Paris are banning people from being out after 9 p.m. Paris, as well as several French cities, has been placed on the highest coronavirus alert. On Thursday, France reported a daily record of 41,622 new cases.
And finally, action movie star Jean-Claude Van Damme has come to the rescue of a 3-month-old Chihuahua, saving her from euthanasia on Monday after a legal tussle between Norway and Bulgaria. The dog, named Raya, was sold to new owners in Norway in September, but officials there would not register her because she had traveled on a fake Bulgarian passport. Norway tried to repatriate the animal, but Bulgaria refused to take her back because of EU rules about transport of live animals, leaving the dog facing euthanasia until the Belgian film legend got involved. Van Damme launched an emotive campaign on social media, posting selfies of him hugging his Chihuahua, and that eventually persuaded the Bulgarian Food Safety Authority to accept the dog back. The dog's fake passport meant she would have been put down on October 20 under Norway's legislation.
I wonder if they have visas as well.
I know. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm CJ Hero. See you back tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.